Hi there, Plant Girl here. It's November 1st and we made it through our first big snowstorm of the season already. Hard to believe we had a huge heavy wet snowstorm come through right at the end of October, but we did. It was forecast, but not for the extent that we got, and I don't think a lot of us were quite prepared for what happened, but I feel like I got off pretty lucky as far as damage goes in my yard, but I do have a few casualties. So I thought we'd just take a few minutes today, real quick, and just kind of look at what happened in the yard, see the damage that was done, and see the things that I'm happy survived. So let's have a look. We were having a really mild October until that storm hit. So a lot of the trees hadn't even dropped their leaves yet. So I have this rose here. I think this is a Morden Centennial. I'll have to look it up. I'm really bad at remembering which varieties of each tree and shrub and things I have are, but I have them all written down inside. So I'll put the names down on the screen for you. I think that's the best way to get the most accurate information. But I was really lucky, and I think because the leaves maybe are a bit finer on this, I don't know, or it just has more pliable branches. It wasn't damaged by the heavy wet snow, because it was very heavy wet snow that we had here. But I got lucky, and my rose is still here. It's a beautiful rose with gorgeous blooms. It blooms most of the summer. A lot of my cherries were still in full leaf too. I mean, they were changing color, but they hadn't dropped their leaves. My apple tree was the same way, and so I was really concerned about these guys. This is something I really don't want to have damage happen to. There's especially these two here. This is a Juliet, kind of in the foreground there, and it had leaves still on it before the snow, but it had started to lose some leaves. But it's dropped pretty much all of them now since the snow. I think as the snow dragged off of it, the leaves did too. This is my Romeo here. You can see he needs a little pruning. He's got some crossing branches, but we'll deal with that another day. But yeah, he still had, let's say, 60% of his leaves on here, and I was lucky because I thought for sure that heavy snow, which was pushing down on the branches, was going to destroy some, but he's still intact, as well as some of my other cherry trees that I have. Very happy they weren't damaged. I have a Cupid in the flower bed behind me. I have a large, I think it's a Manchurian cherry that I've had for several years. I grew off of a cutting from another tree, and I have another one over that way that's from a cutting, and I was lucky they all survived, as well as my apple tree. No branches broken. I was very happy about that. I think because the branches are so pliable on these trees, and they weren't yet actually frozen before the freezing rain and the snow hit, I think that's what helped. You know, I kind of feel like if we'd have got that heavy freezing rain and heavy snow further into the deep winter when the branches were more frozen, I think they would have broken. So I'm happy for that. Unfortunately, my Weigela here and my Hydrangea, not so lucky. So I think I only have this one kind of larger Weigela left here in the yard. No, I have another one over there. We better have a look at it too. And these always keep their leaves. The Weigela often has its leaves still in the spring. I often come, they're dried out, and I just kind of rub them off so that, because I get impatient for the new growth and I don't want to look at dried up leaves. But it got trampled pretty bad. I don't think it actually broke any stems, so that's lucky. It just got really mashed down, so hopefully it'll bounce back. The hydrangea though, oh, this guy took a beating. Like, look at this stem. It's just smashed off. Broken branch. So I think there's some stuck under the snow here that aren't broken. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is ones like shrubs and trees like this that have definite broken branches already, or maybe trapped under this snow, I'll have to kind of dig out the branches that aren't broken and I'll kind of release them from the snow a bit, because it's good to have snow cover on your plants over the winter in these cold regions like Saskatchewan, here where I am, but you don't want this heavy wet snow weighing them down. And then the branches that are broken, that are still attached like this, I think I'm going to come and just cut them off. I don't know, this is really, to get snow like this here isn't all that common, and I haven't had to really deal with this kind of breakage on my plants before. But I think I'm just going to come and cut them off. And luckily hydrangeas do generate a lot of growth throughout the summer, and hopefully it'll bounce back pretty quickly. I have a few more hydrangeas that look like this. This was the largest. You can't even tell there's a hydrangea here probably, but there is. I usually come and cut some of these flowers to enjoy inside in the winter. This year they just got smashed, but I think this one looks like it might just be smashed under the snow. I don't see any breakage right now, but I will put on some gloves and I'll just kind of gently try and release it from the snow, and hopefully it can find its shape again. So I don't know how well you can determine or differentiate the hydrangea here from all the leaves that mulch on the ground, but this guy actually, I thought he had broken branches, but I think they just got trampled by the heavy wet snow, and the snow's melted off of this one, so it's starting to bounce back a bit, I think. My yew behind here, I don't know if you can see that green back there. It looks still pretty good. And I do have another Weigela here, and it's kind of just coming back from the roots this summer. I thought it was dead actually in the spring. So it has a lot of really young, tender growth, and again, I think it was able to just kind of bend and sway. I have 3 Mugho pines that are quite mature. They're some of the first plantings that went in this yard, and they're surrounding a Schubert cherry or choke cherry. And the pines, you know, they have the needles on them obviously, and they were really weighed down. But I think because they're the way the branches go anyways, and they are a springy kind of branch, I don't see anything actually broken in it, so that's really good. And none of my large trees, like my Schubert chokecherry or my ash trees, none of them, my maple, none of them lost branches. So I'm really, really happy about that, because that would be really hard to see a more mature tree lose its branches and have to come back from that and change its shape a lot. I have a couple of very young evergreens at the back of my yard, and I was really concerned about how they would hold up to that snow load. But I think actually they were protected from the bulk of the snow because of the fence. My new greenhouse is on the other side of me here, and the other one is kind of planted in the corner of the fence with the maple tree on the one side of it. And I think they really didn't get the amount of snow pressure on them that a lot of my other shrubs and trees did. So I was very happy. There's also a Montgomery blue spruce. I don't think you can see it, but a smaller, you know, it's kind of a smaller, almost rounder, low-growing shrub right now, and I thought that the snow might just pile in the middle of it and just smash it, but it came out all right as well. So I was very happy to see that. I have this big Ninebark here. Kind of blends in with the fence and the surrounding other trees right now this time of year, but it's sustained just a little bit of breakage on this one stem. I don't see anything else too damaged on it. My neighbor actually had this growing as well as another one in his yard, and he tossed them over the fence. But I really like to use the branches on this. I actually cut them every year. About this time of year, I'll often cut some branches. They're very pliable, and I use them for my wreath forms. I haven't done that yet, and it's getting to that point where they're going to be too frozen and cold to be able to manipulate them, but There's still lots of nice long branches on here and they're still pliable. I think the fact that it's so pliable is probably what saved it. I'm not sure why this one branch is broken, if it was from the snow or just happened to be broken and I just noticed it now that I'm looking at from the snow. And the other one that I have is much smaller. My neighbor just dug it up and tossed it over the fence, I think this spring or last fall, and it's just settling in still, so much smaller, but kind of a nice little shrub to have. And I think even if it had broken some branches, I think it grows so fast that it wouldn't have really mattered. I do have one large casualty and I'm really sad about it, but there's nothing I can do really, so let's go have a look and we'll talk about it. Unfortunately, one of my very favorite trees in the yard has taken a real beating. Some branches I can probably tie up and get to come back with, I'll just use some soft twine and just bring them back in a bit without pushing too much and try and just get them back. I don't know if you can see though, these are hanging the wrong way. These are completely broken. Yeah. Just pulls right out. Lots of big branches like this. And evergreens like this just don't rejuvenate at the same rate as even like a deciduous tree would. Lots of breakage in here. Lots of branches on the ground. I have a couple branches here that are broken about halfway through, and I've just very carefully come and just used some twine and tried to pull them back together and hold them up against the tree, and maybe they'll be able to kind of grow back together. I might lose them all together, but I thought it was worth a try. There's another big storm coming from Alberta in the next day or so. It looks like it's going to swoop around us, and I really hope it does because I don't need any more heavy wet snow right now on this tree. I'm going to do my best to try and get it, trim off any completely broken branches and kind of gently tie up what's left here, and hopefully it'll still look all right in the spring and be able to recover, because this tree doesn't have a lot of branching to begin with and it goes up and fills in that way, and I'm a little concerned that this really beautiful kind of statement piece tree is going to not be making the statement I want come spring. But overall, it was the worst casualty, and most of my trees and plants and things came out all right. So I can't be too upset, but this was sad for me to see this. My rhododendrons, they survived with that heavy wet snow. I thought for sure they'd be broken because they always seem like a stiffer branched plant. I have another hydrangea. It seems completely fine. I have some Spirea in the front yard that I think are a little bit smashed. Let's have a look. So here we are in the front yard, and this poor little cypress, it took a beating, but I don't think anything's actually broken on it. So I'm really hoping that it might recover as long as it doesn't get smashed again. Because it actually lost some branches in a harsh, almost snowless winter a few years ago where it was just too cold with no insulation around it. And I had to cut a big chunk of it out, and it's just finally started to look better. And now it got hit with snow again. My grasses that I like for winter interest have been smashed to the ground, so they're not all that interesting anymore. Same with my echinacea. I liked the seed heads, and so many of them fell to the ground there. My Spirea is looking really smashed in the center. I don't know how you can see that one too, is really pushed down, but I think they'll jump back up and recover from that. I have these, there's a blue kazoo Spirea here. I think it's blue kazoo. I'll look it up again. And another one here that I just planted this spring. And This one's not so bad. This part right by our house and driveway really blew in here, and this one got pretty smashed in. But again, I don't think anything's really broken. Maybe a couple small bits, but I think it'll be all right. I have a trio of plantings under this ash tree here. I want to say dogwoods, but sometimes I think I'm wrong and they're willows. But I have two different varieties here. Again, I'll put the the names down below. So 2 red-twigged shrubs here that are just smashed, and I probably won't see what kind of damage is on this one that's completely buried here until the spring, because I don't think I'm going to be able to get at it enough. But I can see right here there's a branch that's completely bent over. There's definitely going to be some damage in there. And I have a juniper here. Now this is a low-growing juniper, so hopefully it just flattened out and didn't break. They're looking pretty rough. They are not the winter interest that they're planted for right now. But that happens sometimes. I have a matching planting on the other side. This one seems to have fared just a little better, but again, there's a shrub under all that snow there. Somehow my snapdragons still look amazing. There's also mint over there, but mint can live through almost anything. But yeah, look at those snapdragons go. Awesome. Right beside me here, this is the hydrangea I bought for a bargain at the end of the season and planted this late summer, early fall. And luckily, I think it's all right. It kind of got pushed over a little bit, but it didn't actually break. There wasn't a lot to it because it was kind of stressed from living in a garden center all summer, but I think it'll be all right, which is good to see. And my Alberta spruces, one here, and I think you can see that one back there, they're looking good as well. So overall, things could have been a lot worse, and I'm disappointed about a couple of things, but most of my yard is still intact after that really heavy wet snow that was quite deep in areas, and that's just the beginning of winter, so I guess we'll have to wait till spring to see how it really all shakes out. But that's what I can tell you for now. Is overall most things survived. Few casualties, one really disappointing one, but for the most part I think the yard will be fairly unchanged come spring. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.